trouble, but I will solve that in a moment. If you're joining us on YouTube, do say hello. I am just solving an issue with a button that is preventing me from clicking something. But if you can see me and hear me and you're joining us, thank you for coming, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Dave, do you just want to say hi to everybody just whilst we're getting going?
Yeah. So welcome to us. Welcome to our live webinar. We are going to be discussing 5 strategies to build your personal brand. So just bear with us. There are a few technical issues as there is with technology these days. But yeah, looking forward to having you join us today. Please put comments in the chat so we can see where you're from, but also just say hello. We like to know that we are joined by people because otherwise we're looking at screens and there's no audience and it feels very strange to us. So do let us know you're here. We're all excited to show you 5 strategies to build your personal brand today. So some really, really useful things that you'll be able to implement live on LinkedIn. How are we looking, Dean? We
Yeah,
nearly there?
we're all up. We're all up. We had a little glitch. I have a I have a Chrome extension that I use on my LinkedIn. Probably a little bit naughty. It helps me. Lusher, big promo to Lusher here. The annoying thing is that the go live button and the Lusher button are over the top of each other, and I was trying to move it to get the live button, but we're up and running. So we moved this webinar to 2 o'clock because we are so smart and so intelligent. We forgot that it's Halloween tonight. So we thought we'd do it early and talk about some of the key things that you're going to need to do to build your personal brand, not just now here in on the last day of October in 2023, but actually in 2024. And we're going to dispel the Paris Hilton syndrome, which is infecting social media right now, and you definitely do not want to get that syndrome anywhere near any of your profiles. So, Dave, before we kind of get into the thrust of what we're going to talk about, how would you describe a personal brand? What does a personal brand mean to you?
So for me, personal brand is basically what you want people to think about you when you leave the room. It really is the what do you want to be known by? If someone sees your name and they see your company and they can put the two together, what is it that they think of? And how that contributes towards the main goal, which is if you're trying to sell or if you're marketing a business or how you can link the two. So personal brand for me is really about what does your audience think of you? What does the audience think when you leave the room, and what's the message that's left behind?
Yeah, and I think that's really important that we remember this here. It's not personal branding is not just being famous for famous sake. So I can see Andrew's here, I can see Petra's here, and a few others are here. So do say hello in the chat. But it is this piece of being known, being remembered for the right reasons. The right reasons. And this is really important. And often what I'll do is I'll say to people, think of your personal brand like an election campaign. Yeah. Now, in an election, you have a ton of different messages and different things, but there is a slogan or a simplified version of you or a version of the campaign that people remember. And it's really key to think about it like that. People can't really retain everything that you are at the full depth of Dean or the full depth of Dave. It's kind of like a simplified version that you've got to land so that people remember. Dave, what do you see as some of the common mistakes before we get into the 5 strategies? Common mistakes with personal branding.
So some of the common mistakes is the vagueness of you want to be known for everything, right? You want to be an expert in everything around around what you do, but ultimately you won't be remembered if you're trying to be remembered for everything. And that's just the problem that you have is if you say that I help business owners save time and money, it's like what do you do? what is it that you actually offer any value or expertise in? Because there's more specifics to that. And actually, a lot of people try to go too vague to try to be remembered for everything, but end up being remembered for nothing. So there's one thing.
It's,
Other thing is, sorry, Dean, do you want to add to that?
I was going to say, it's a little bit like being typecast as a celebrity or an actor. So if you're trying to, be known as a famous actor, an actor, very often you have to go into a genre or an atypical role. So you would only see Jim Carrey in, generally, you only see Jim Carrey as a comedy actor, or you see Liam Neeson's the classic one, right? Liam Neeson is in every kind of action hero kind of thing. It's about deliberately and willfully choosing to typecast yourself. But I think one of the big ones I'm seeing, which is a real problem for people on LinkedIn specifically, is what I call Paris Hilton syndrome. And Paris Hilton syndrome is you know, she's famous for being famous. She hasn't really done anything to in her own right. And I see a lot of people sharing stuff on LinkedIn that doesn't help them be remembered for the right reasons. Now, you'll see this a lot of selfie posts, and there's nothing wrong with selfie posts. But if you go to an extreme, people remember you, but don't remember why they remember you. There's no lasting impression of you're the go-to person if I have this problem or if I want this outcome. So I think it's clear you've got to build your personal brand around the problem or the outcome you know you can fix. That's how you make it profitable. But if you go down the route of just trying to be Paris Hilton syndrome, you get the Paris Hilton syndrome, high engagement, high visibility. You know, you're sharing your life and your sore toe and all of that stuff, but nobody has a clue why. And the theory is, sorry, Dave, I've interrupted. The theory is, well, if I get lots of attention, that's bound to make me money. And Dave, we know that that doesn't work, right?
Yeah, yeah, we can obsess over the vanity metrics all we like, and they're the safe ones. They're the safe metrics because if you get an increase in engagement or a decrease in engagement, it's a very easy one to spot, and it's easy to not feel personal that around why that is. So it's the easy one, and it's the one that people choose to focus on because there's no real negatives behind it. It's just, oh, it's down one day, it's up the next, and you can blame the algorithm, you can blame the software, you can. It's too much to blame. But actually, there's a lot more depth to that. And a lot of people use content. And one of the big mistakes, the second one that I was going to talk about, which you kind of covered, Dean, is that people obsess around content being the main metric and the main source of new business. But actually, content isn't the answer. It's actually a contributor. It will help you to establish authority with your prospects, and it will help you to be seen as an expert in a certain field. But actually, if you just rely on content, depending on the outcome, if you just rely on content, then you'll always be fighting. You'll always be fighting for new business. You'll always be fighting for more inquiries or more opportunity.
And you'll be holden to an algorithm that has zero loyalty to you. Let's just be real about this, right? Your content reach and your visibility is contingent on an algorithm that you have zero control over. So as we get into today's session, one of the primary things we want to do is not diss personal branding. We don't want you to think, oh, it's a bad idea, it's nonsense. It's actually really powerful. It's really important. But, and here's the but, building the right personal brand for you. So if you're a senior executive, you've got to set out your stall and think about what goal do you want from your personal brand. Is it for you to move on in your career? Is it about your next job? Is your personal brand about actually opening doors for you, getting into conversation with people, almost using it as a sales tool? So you're a seller, a senior salesperson. Is it a sales tool? Makes your life a bit easier. Or is it a resource to help you as a solopreneur to kind of engage new customers and build that perception that you are the best person for the job. In other words, it's an advantage in the sales process. So think about what your personal branding goal is, because it's so important that you kind of map that out before you kind of go, I'm going to build it. Because Dave, whilst a personal brand is about, you know, visuals and consistent imagery and that stuff, that doesn't make the brand, right?
No, absolutely not. And this is when you say brand, immediately you think, oh, my design, my logos, my visuals. And it's so easy to think that way. And that's why I started by saying it's actually what people think of you. And it's a lot of it is actually all up here rather than through the eyes. So think about a lot of people go, oh, look at my brand, my personal brand, because they've got the color pink in all of their design. But actually, the message behind the design is what's important. What text do people read? What are they actually gaining from that message or your expertise in that post? It doesn't matter. Yes, you may be known as the pink person, but who wants to be known as the pink person if you're not known as the pink LinkedIn expert person? Do you see what I mean? So it's one thing to be visual, but actually the message is actually what's really important, and that's not just personal brand. That's sales. That's marketing. That's everything. Everyone on LinkedIn, we almost have to assume that they're only spending seconds on the platform and seconds looking at you. So in that time, you really have to land your message and land what you're trying to be known for. And visually helps attract the attention. It helps capture the visuals, will help to stop them in the feed. But the depth of the message and what you're trying to, the outcome you provide and how it links directly to them is what's important.
So point number one, I think what we want to do is go, what does your personal brand stand for? And in order to be remembered, you have to be unique, right? But we'll come to different elements of uniqueness. But the first strategy is, what do you stand for, and what do you stand against? And this is ever so important. It's not about hating people. It's not about attacking people, but it's about what are the issues in your subject matter that you would die on a hill for? You stand for something, but you also say that's the bad way. This is not the way to do it. So inside of your topic, you don't just want to be known as, okay, I am, you know, a LinkedIn person or a social selling person. What are the things that you believe about social selling or LinkedIn that makes you different? What is it about that, the way you do it, that you passionately fight for? It doesn't mean you have to, you know, pile on and critique other people's stuff, but you have to say, this is the way it has to be. If you're doing it like this is why I don't want you to do it like this. So it's not just about, I'm an expert in my field. What are the things you passionately believe about that area of subject matter expertise? That's the starting. Your values around the topic. When I have conversations with people about personal branding, they often, and I say, what are your values? They say, I'm kind, I'm friendly, I love people. And it's like, yeah, we can all say that. But what about your topic separates you? What about your topic separates you from everybody else? That's a differentiator. The other one, which Dave's going to speak on, is personality. How do you get your personality into your brand, your style, your vibe? Because that's, you know, cheesy as it is, vibe attracts tribe. Dave?
Yeah. Look, people buy into you before they buy from you, which is why personal brand is so important. And actually, something as simple as, and we always say this, oh, LinkedIn's turning into Facebook. Oh, I hate the way it's turning into Facebook. It's people posting photos of their dogs. But if you've seen someone post a photo of their dog and you know that person sells their expertise, which they're trying to sell to you, right? If you know they're a dog person, does that influence your decision slightly? Does it make you feel like that person is more on your level? Does it give you any inkling into their lifestyle that allows you to go, maybe I like this person more than the next? Absolutely. And personality plays a big part in that. If you're selling your expertise to someone, right, they're never going to buy from a message. They're not going to buy because you send them one message saying, I can help transform your career. they know they work with you on a personal level. So everything about you is going to be important, and then making that decision to work with you. And this is the thing, LinkedIn isn't about company pages, really. There is an element of it, and it needs to fit a certain criteria, but people are buying from people, and that's why relationships are so important. So how does your personality, the way you convey your personality, how does it influence people in making decisions to engage you? So think about it. If I start using emojis, does that make me come across as maybe more friendly, more approachable, more personable? Maybe, maybe less professional to some people, but absolutely it could influence my audience to think actually this person's a bit more open to conversation, a bit more approachable, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if someone's very abrupt, exclamation marks, capital letters in their content, does that influence the way that you feel about them? I mean, to me, it does. It makes a huge difference, and actually, you see that quite often with personality and how we communicate it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So we've got obviously the positions you take around your personal brand. On your topic, what are the things you'll die on a hill for? What do you fundamentally believe? Positions. Now you got personality. Who are you really? So if you hang around me for a long enough, you'll know that oh, you can't see it here, but I'm a massive Star Trek fan. I don't hide that. I don't run from that. I have fun with it. I play with it and I mix it into who I am. I don't dress up at the weekends as Mr. Spock or anything, you'll be pleased to know, but it is a part of my personality. And my personality is my humor's quite dry, and I'm more conversational. Don't think that your personal brand has to turn you into that mean looking, BBC apprentice audition. Don't think it's about slickness. It's about you as an individual and that topic that you're passionate about, like smashing together. It's not about creating another persona. It's not about doing the photo shoots. It's not about the slick renting sports cars or telling people you're a millionaire. It's none of that nonsense. It's about you really shining for who you are and letting people connect with you, because they, as Dave says, people buy into you before they buy from you. So personality is massive.
And just to add to that as well, the influence on that is really important, because the way people choose to engage you is obviously going to be influenced by that. And if I see someone who I know is a football fan, immediately I see an easy opportunity to converse with that person. And actually having mutual hobbies or mutual interests can be a great way. And Dean, you've had conversations with really kind of high level people from large companies about Star Trek, right?
Yeah, it's weird things. It's weird things because when you've got your own little passions and fandoms, you kind of notice when other people use phraseology and words that like it triggers you to realize, they know something. So I've had whole conversations with high level people about science fiction movies as a way to engage people. And it does make you a bit more interesting as a person than just talking about topic. We love to know the behind the scenes of people. We love to understand what they're really like, not just the kind of front we put on for social media, or not just our yatta about our topic. They like to see that bit of individuality, and that makes you different. You've got your positions on your topic that make you different. You've got your personality that makes you different. They are differentiators. You can't be copied that way. If you connect with a person, they connect with you. That can't be duplicated. That can't be stolen from you. Somebody can't go and steal your content and do it exactly the same way because you make it different. If your content doesn't have any personality in it, you are copyable. So let's look at something else that in personal branding strategy, which is really powerful, and this is the mere exposure effect. Now, I've got a little diagram to explain this, but this was actually a study that was done many years ago about the power of multiple exposures and how people will remember you and warm to you the more time they see you, the more times they spend around you, the more they warm to you. So we see this at play all the time with people where they're massively pushing out who they are, and they build an audience. And there is an element of just being out there can help, but being out there for the right reasons, the topics. So the mere exposure effect is basically the more you are seen by your target audience, which could be 200 people, by the way. It doesn't have to be 20,000. You can build a personal brand with a handful of people. And if those handful of people can unlock £1 million of revenue for you, that's all that matters. You do not need to be a world famous person to have a personal brand. If you have a personal brand and high reputation with 5 CEOs who can give you a £200,000 worth of business, you've made £1 million. It's irrelevant whether anybody else other than the people who can pay you understand your personal brand. So the mere exposure effect is about how can I create meaningful exposures to me and what I do. So things like doing events like this, things like doing workshops, free workshops. People say free, don't do free. Free is great for building personal brand. So all those people who say I don't do anything for free, being a diva, ignore them. Free can be powerful in unlocking the multiple exposures. Audio events, posting, podcasts, anything where people can get to know you in a prolonged way is powerful. The more they the more they see you, the more familiar, the more they trust you. So familiarity doesn't breed contempt. It actually breeds fondness.
That doesn't mean you can send them 15 messages and all those messages are going to be a bit of exposure. So by the 16th message that they like you, or the same as sending 50 emails and eventually, oh, they'll love me because they've seen my name so many times. It's almost like subtle presence. It's like, do they see that you're quite often giving value on your network? Do they see you contributing to the space? Because all of those things that show that you're not actively out to seek something, but you're contributing and you're present, and they see your name, and it's always followed by something positive. Just imagine the impact that has.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're one of those who's cold pitching a lot of the time, and actually you go, well, I do get a couple of meetings, think of all the negative exposure that you've gained along the way. Think about all the negative taste that you've left behind you. And this is the thing, we focus more on the positive exposure and go, actually, that leads us to more positive engagement. Yes, it may not be direct replies in messages, but it's subconscious engagements that will help you to land more business in the future and help you become more known for the right things and the more positive things, which links back to what we said earlier.
So here's a good point Dave makes there is you don't want to be known as that annoying person. But let me give you a little bit of a fun counter to this. Let's say you're a salesperson. You've got to do so much outreach, right? It doesn't matter what I say to you. You've got bosses, and those bosses say to you, we've got to do so many outreaches per day, per week, per month, whatever that is. You've got an output level to sustain. If you start prolifically showing up on LinkedIn, you start connecting with those prospects that you're going to have to outreach to. You start sharing content, adding value, doing lives and audio events. Yes, you're a seller, but do them anyway. You're going to build that personal brand where people recognize you. Name recognition aligned with your topic. So then if you do call them, then if you do email them, you actually get a better response. And we tell sellers all the time, if LinkedIn isn't your main channel, if you're a diehard caller, if you're an email person, build your personal brand with the multiple exposures, because when you call, when you email, people will recognize your name. And when they recognize your name, they see it in the from name, It's a myth, by the way, that the subject line is key. It's the from name that's key. So if you've built your personal brand with the right people on LinkedIn that you're going to outreach, and then you send them an email, they recognize the name and you get the open. Very simple concept. So strategy number one, if you've strategy number, where are we? I've lost myself. Number four, if you want to actually push out outreach, build the brand first, engage with their content, share content, do audio events, anything that increases your name recognition before you actually outreach will improve the success of the outreach. And most people don't think this way. They're thinking quite short term of, I just want to outreach, and missing the fact that actually having that mere exposure effect, just being visible, building that name recognition will actually improve the response rates. It's massive.
Yeah, it's an important part. There's, like Dean said, some people have to do things a certain way. And if you're selling a service that doesn't require you spending hours and hours building relationships, then you shouldn't have to. And we're not telling people there's only one way to use LinkedIn, but your personal brand contributes no matter which level you're doing. Just posting content and just creating engagements and just being present will allow you to improve your success rate across the board. Emails, like Dean said, your name being recognized is huge. So if you went on LinkedIn, created some awareness around your name, around the company name, sent them an email, would that be more likely to be open? And this is the thing, LinkedIn isn't put all your eggs in one basket. Personal brand isn't put all your eggs in one basket. It's about how that can contribute to your current approach to improve it. And this is always what we're looking to do: improve our strategies so that we get higher response rates and higher conversion rates, right? So if these little things will help you to do that, and yet people think personal brand, I have to establish myself, I have to go on all social channels and I have to post daily, I have to do all this stuff. You don't have to, and it doesn't have to be to millions of people. You just have to isolate the group of people you want to be known by in that moment. And that could be a handful of clients at that time that you're pursuing, a handful of accounts, and just focus on doing more than just trying to sell them an idea, and actually just try to be known first. And I think that will make a huge difference to your conversion rate.
Yeah, think of it like a bubble, right? Think of it like a bubble. You might have 50, 60 accounts that you're working on, say, and all you need to do is basically go and grow your network with them, post content that they're going to find helpful around the topics, all the things we've talked about, engage with them, give them guides, give them stuff so that you become the most valuable connection. And then that way you're in a place where they know who you are, the trust's been established, they recognize the name. So when you outreach, you've got more of an impact. So use LinkedIn as the warm-up act if you're a seller and you want to build that personal brand. Just warm people up, content, engagement, connecting. Just do that before you call, before you outreach, and you'll find your outreach success is higher. So let's just look at a couple of things. There's one more thing that's really important about establishing your personal brand, and it kind of leads on from the mere exposure effect. And we may share screens on this one. I'll have to figure out how to do it. But it is the profile loop. So we talk about multiple exposures. People see you multiple times, right? And that's how you build up that visibility and memorability. And I'll just share my screen and show you this. Hopefully it'll work on this gadget. So this is my LinkedIn profile, right? So I'm not going to go into the profile optimization today, but what I'm trying to get to is, yes, we talked about colors and styling and fonts and being consistent, and that matters. But actually banging the drum with a consistent message and using your profile as the buyer education zone is the way to make your personal brand stick. Yes, you can do it with content, but actually your profile is probably the best place. Why? When you send a connection request, people come look at it. When you comment on somebody's post, people come look at it. When you put something out that's like insightful or curious, it makes people curious, they look at your profile. So the profile is basically a homepage. It's a landing page where everybody comes to go, who is this person? And if your profile does not tell people quickly, concisely, and clearly, if you don't define yourself by your profile, you're missing a trick on personal branding. Dave?
Yeah, look, every action you take leads to a reaction from your prospects, and we'd be naive to think um, that they will go to our website and check us out, learn about us, and then come back and book a call. It's not how it works. And actually, people, if you give them too many options to leave or too many options, things to do, then you won't be part of that decision making process at all. So we have to clearly demonstrate the value that we offer, and we have to clearly demonstrate how they engage us on our profiles if we are to get them to do exactly that. And look, some may go to our company page and check us out. And look, there's different areas of the profile that are really going to be important and fundamental to this, that to you will seem like little teeny things that aren't necessary. But we have to assume that our prospects spend 5 seconds on our introduction card at the top of our profile. And in those 5 seconds, they're making a decision as to whether LinkedIn is where that your profile is where they should be, and you are who they should work with, right? Look at your profile now. Does yours just say your first name and your job title? Because if it does, they're not gaining that from you. And then if you look in your featured section, are you just showing that your best posts are in there? Are you just going, look at my most recent post. These got lots of engagement, which no one can see, by the way, your impressions. So only you can see that. So only you benefit from that. They don't really benefit from being there. And this is the thing with our profile is we always go, profile is always like the weak bit. It's always like, oh, no one really cares about that. It's just my outreach or it's just my content. Your profile is fundamental at getting them to make a decision. Do they want to work with you? Yes or no? Or are they talking to the right person? And LinkedIn, the stat comes straight from LinkedIn themselves. Something like 62 or 64% of decision makers on LinkedIn are using our profiles to vet us, right? Whether to work with us. So that 62% of decision makers, by the way, people that we say are not on LinkedIn, which really are CEOs, business owners, marketing directors, are using our profiles to decide whether or not to work with us going forwards. So if you're an executive coach or you're a salesperson or you're a marketing expert, everyone should be doing the same. Go start with the profile, make sure it communicates the right message to the right people, and then build upon it from there.
And tip, don't make it complicated. Oh my God. Right. I see all the time people using like LinkedIn banners and putting like, those weird, obscure brand statements like making things possible. For what? It, about what? Why? Who? It's like, make it flipping obvious, please. Brand statements can become more and more obscure the bigger you are. But if you're on LinkedIn building your personal brand or wherever, right? Doesn't matter. If you're starting out and you're trying to establish something, make it clear, make it obvious, make it so that in 6 or 7 seconds, people can figure out this is relevant to me. Making things possible. If I change Maverick's brand statement to making things possible, about what? For who? In what way? It just doesn't land. It might
Yeah.
seem like Steve Jobs esque, right? But Dave,
Another
this is
one,
your
another one
area.
people say, another one people say is like IT solutions, providing business solutions. And you're like, okay, you have a slight inkling, but you don't know it's for you. You don't know what type of solution. Is it a technology solution? Is it software? You just without that kind of detail, you have to go digging. And when you go digging, you don't come back. And that's just naturally how it goes. So I think it's really important in that, especially utilize the space to communicate and communicate in a way that your audience will understand it. Don't talk as if you're talking to yourself and you're using all these technical words that your audience don't understand about the methods of how you deliver your coaching. Actually, just look at what's a simple way I can talk to the outcome. I can speak to my audience and get them to resonate. And look, you can be vague with your strap line if you're really well known. But at this stage, most of us, most of you, aren't very well known. In a sense, your company isn't really familiar. Your name might become more familiar, but your company isn't. So it's not good to be clever in the early stages. It's only good to be clever when you're setting yourself apart from your competitors when you're already known.
Mm. And I would think about, because obviously we remember feelings, right? I mean, talking about B2B here, we remember feelings. So, what are the feelings you want people to remember about interacting with you? That plays into your personality, but like when you decide to put a personal brand statement out there and you decide to make it obvious and you decide to relate it to the outcomes you can deliver, how do you make them feel something? How do you make them feel something? What's the transformation feeling that they're getting? So, say for an example, we help people, win clients from social selling, right? That's factual. That's information. That's what we do. But how do we make people feel? Less stress, less annoyance, the dreaded feeling of picking up the phone. What are we making people feel? What feelings are we taking away? What feelings are we adding? Inject that into your content. So if you go, actually, one of the feelings is peace of mind. It's, okay. How do you give that to people in the content? You might have a point to make in the post, but how do you give people that? Ah, you get me? Hopefully you get me. It's not just about, I've got a yellow brand, a yellow logo. I love yellow with accents of purple. Dave's going mad here because he's ex graphic designer, and I just put yellow and purple together. I don't know whether he likes that. But it is the feelings you're landing. The feelings you're landing. Now, some of you will be going, personal branding, I just want to get on with the posting. Get on. Write all this stuff down. Write all this stuff down. What are the positions I'm taking? What's the personality that I want to project out? What's my personality? The elements of my personality I want to project. What's the feelings? What's my plan to get those multiple exposures and who for? And then what's the promise I'm putting out there through my profile? What's the big statement I'm making to the world that projects that feeling, but that certainty of this is where I'm going to get you? A bit like we talked about Liam Neeson earlier. You know, whenever you watch a Liam Neeson film, the pieces on the chessboard might change a bit, but he's always trying to rescue somebody or save something or in a tight spot, and he has to overcome great odds. And we're all waiting for that. Hello, I have a special set of skills. Yeah, it's that kind. That's not a very good Liam Neeson impression, right? I tried to deepen my voice as much as I can. But that's what we're expecting, right? We know what to expect. It's predictable. The personal brand is predictable. And some people say, well, I want to be a bit more crazy. I want to be a bit more out there. That in itself is predictable. They expect that you will be a bit out there and a bit wacky, maybe. Or if you're a lawyer, you're going to be predictable about certain things. You build up that picture that people expect a certain way of doing things from you. They get used to it. McDonald's is another example. McDonald's brand is not just that logo. It's actually the whole experience of interacting with McDonald's is the brand. People remember it's quick, it's simple, it's straightforward. That's a personal brand. It's about giving somebody something and they know that that's you. Would your content, would your profile truly project who you are?
Yeah, and it's not always about, like we said earlier, it's not always about visuals. It's about the message, or it's about the impression that you leave behind. And why profile again is so important is that first impression is huge. But not only the first impression, then the lasting impression obviously makes a difference. If someone works for a company and they have, all of a sudden someone raises the fact that they need to get a quote for some training that they want to implement, and this training is communication training, that person is going to start to think, and you don't want them to go to Google. You want them to go, I have someone in my network who I've seen has established themselves in this area. And this isn't all about getting yeses on LinkedIn and getting sales and calls immediately through LinkedIn. It's about being present and being in the minds of the people who need what you sell when they need it, right? And this is why personal branding is another thing, and why we post content. It's not because you won't just make sales from the actions you go outbound. You will make sales from your lasting impression on LinkedIn, because this is the good thing with LinkedIn and why it's so valuable is there's consistent elements to it. As you build your network, they don't disappear. They keep hearing about your message. They keep hearing about what you do, and they keep hearing it. And actually, those people that are diluting their message are being remembered for nothing. And everyone can go, oh, look, you don't want to be remembered as being the person who helps nurses called Donna who have 4 kids. And you don't want to be specific, too specific. You don't want to niche down that far. But you also don't want to dilute your message that you're remembered for nothing, because then your name will never come up in those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a sales tool in itself, and it is an opportunity that not only strengthens your other actions, but actually becomes an action in itself.
Stephen, David's asked a good question here about what's your thought on using AI generated imagery for your profile picture rather than a true representation of yourself. Oh, so I've got mixed views on this, David. So some of our team like it because it's a bit cool. I try to avoid the AI version, but I do kind of try and pick my best side and lighting and all that kind of stuff, because you want to look you want to be happy with your profile picture. So it can be cool, but if it's totally different from you, the problem comes is that when you go to trade shows, you want people to be able to recognize you. And if you look, 20 years younger, 20 pounds lighter, or any of that stuff, it can go, is that even the right person? So there's nothing wrong with showing your best side, I think. There's nothing wrong with you, making sure it's your best pick and you're happy with it. And there's nothing wrong with if you want to go down that cool road, but just if you're going to be meeting lots of people, it's better to have a real picture. If you're just going to be online and you're probably not going to interact with people, it doesn't matter so much. Dave, what's your take?
Yeah, so I can't see the comments. So can you repeat it for me a second?
Sorry, David was asking, what's your thought on using AI generated imagery for your profile?
Yeah, so the problem with AI, I mean, if you're someone who never smiles in a picture, stick a smile on you. Then that's absolutely fine. It may look a bit weird and your teeth may be huge, and try to avoid all that. But absolutely, if you're someone who, for some reason, you just cannot get yourself to look friendly in that photo, and I feel sorry, and I could be one of them sometimes where I'm like, no picture that I put up I'm ever happy with, right? And little edits and stuff like that can help you is fine. But there's so many photos on there now that look like AI, that the problem, and there are AI people on LinkedIn, by the way, that are out there there's people using fake profiles. If you don't want to be put in the same category as those people, so you don't want people to be desensitized by you immediately. And you look at any type of content creation across social platforms, the best content creation out there is always the raw footage. It's always the real deal. It's always the worst lighting. Looks like someone's put a SIM card in a potato and filmed it, right? And that's because people genuinely they seem to connect more with something that's raw. So don't feel like you can't be yourself and post something that is a little less little less produced. But AI has its place as long as the edits aren't hugely substantial, like Dean said, manipulate you in a way that doesn't allow you to be recognized.
So another thing I was going to say about this before we'll take any more questions. So do put your comments in the chat. If you've got any questions, please put them in. We've talked about some very simple things you can do. Develop your opinions and on your topic, showcase your personality a little bit more. Leverage the mere exposure effect multiple times that you need to show up and see your face in the feed. Use your profile as an education and landing page, because that will help cement messages. And that's really important in terms of making sure that your brand statement is there and clear and obvious. Um, uh, and then then the final thing I wanted to talk about is, particularly with personal branding, is when it comes to content, is making the content from your experience. So we've talked about putting the content from like putting your personality in it, but actually sharing from your perspective. So the way I talk about this is there's how I content and how to content. Now, how to content, and this kind of plays onto other things. How to content is generic. Anybody could share it. But how I content is unique to you. So how I assess or value a business, how I look at this, how I see this. So it's not, you are not the BBC, right? So we're not talking just about opinions here. We're talking about your perspective, your experience, how you do things, the way you work, your methodology. So it's not just personality. If you create the content around the way you do things, it makes you unique, but people buy into your methods, your madness, your way of doing it. And so if they believe and back what you're saying and the way you see the world, it becomes very difficult for them to go elsewhere. If they loved your first Taken movie, they want to see Taken 2. They want to see Taken 3, right? And if they loved Liam Neeson in Taken 1 and then they put somebody else in Taken 2, they will judge the new actor based off Taken 1. Yeah. So a bit like with James Bond, you're seeing Daniel Craig retiring now. The new James Bond, whoever that is, will be judged by the old one. And if they're better, they will rate it in relation. So you can become the measuring stick for other people by doing things and sharing things from your perspective. And this takes guts, by the way, right? And Dave, your journey on that has been one of, you came from, I don't post on social media, to I'm on LinkedIn every day talking to people and posting. It takes guts to really put yourself out there.
Yeah. And look, just like anything, you only become more comfortable the more you do it. And the more you see that it actually isn't a big, bad, scary place, and you can do it in your own way, you can do it at your own pace, and no one's forcing you to be anything other than yourself. And this is the thing. If you're someone who's very opinionated about politics, then obviously you want to keep that sort of stuff off there. But you should be able to be yourself on these platforms and treat someone like you've just met them in person. The biggest mistake people make is hi name, space, space. I hope you're well, space, space. And then it's like this email style template that they would send to people that they've never met, right? LinkedIn actually is all about catching people off guard a little bit, bringing down those barriers, and treating people like people. So actually, some of the most beneficial things that you could do is just make someone laugh, or drop their barrier by introducing yourself in a different way, a quirky way, right? And this is the thing I found is the more generic and the more boring I've been on LinkedIn, the less replies I get. The more myself I am and the more open I am to sharing and engaging with someone, the more responses I get and the more opportunities I create. I've had people sending me the letter K to the point where I'm like, oh my God, these people, they're just so blunt and so done with people on LinkedIn. They just send you the letter K, right? So I turned around to that person and I said to him, oh, it sounds like my wife when I've been at the golf all day. Next thing you know, he sent lol, capital letters. He sent me a Calendly link and said, look, let's have a call. He went from sending me K and ignoring me to sending me lol and let's book a call. Just like that, because I caught him off guard. I brought his barrier down and I showed him a little bit of my personality, which allowed him to go, do you know what? Maybe it is worth my time. There's a huge player in that.
It's about being as distinctive as possible, and sharing from your own space, your own perspective and experience. So when it comes to your content, go and have a look and go, how much of my perspective is in this? How much of my experience is in this? Am I writing this like it's the BBC and it's impartial? Or am I writing this from me who doesn't have to be impartial? I can say what I think and I can share it from my experience. I can say, I think this is a bad idea and this is why. That's okay. I don't have to hate the people who do see it differently. I don't have to attack the people who see it differently, but I have to share content that's not generic in the sense of how to, it's how I. Now, a little bit of how to is all right, as long as you put your uniqueness on it. But if you don't put some of your experience into it, some of your slant into it, some of those opinions from earlier, you're copyable. You're basically the same content as everybody else, just a different color scheme.
And one thing I want to add as well, one tip is, look, try to get into video content if you can. Get yourself in front of the camera if you're looking to grow your personal brand, because the most engaged audience, well, although video is actually getting more and more impressions and engagements nowadays, there was a time when that dipped. But actually, the way your audience engages with you personally in video content will trump every other piece of content you've ever done. People seeing Dean's content, I used to be heavily in sales, and the biggest sales I ever made was because people were tuning in to Dean's regular videos on LinkedIn, right? And that's because they're buying into him there and then. It's all real, it's all raw footage, it's all live, and it's all his personality shining through that video content. Video is a hard one, and it's something that you have to build towards. And I never thought when I met Dean that I'd ever see him on video every day doing what he does. But the fact that he pushed himself to do it is about, that's what it is. It's just going and doing it, realizing the actual positive response to it, and then it fuels you to do it more and more. So video content, if I can leave you with a tip, try to get yourself in audio events, live events, try to get yourself in that raw environment where people can actually connect with you personally. And that will help motivate you to continue growing your personal brand, because you'll see the feedback, you'll see the response, and the proof is in the pudding.
So look, we've talked quite a bit. Paul's just made a comment about polls. Paul, we've got a little mini course on polls. So drop me a message and I'll send you the link. It's about $30 or something, but it teaches you how to do polls that really work and really fly. Me and Dave put the course together in how to do it and generate leads from it. So Paul, just drop me a message and I'll send it. It's $30. It's throwaway money. But it'll show you how to build the poll design. It's got a worksheet for it and an exercise of how to get the prospects engaging on it. And then, of course, how to follow them up. But that's not for now. So, Paul, if you want that, just message me. It's no big deal. If you're looking to get started with your personal brand and you're actually looking to use social selling as the tool to win business, I want you to be brave and say, right, I want to make progress in this. I want to take action on this. So you should be able to see me and Dave Faulkner here. Go and drop a message to us and we'll help you build your personal brand. We'll send you a follow-up after this. But if you're serious about building the personal brand and making money from your personal brand, drop us a line, or when we follow up, reply, please. That'd be great. Andrew Barnes has got a question here. Thoughts on building a personal brand when you're in the job of sales? Sometimes it's a concern of mine that when building my personal brand, people revert to thinking this person just wants to sell me something. Andrew, we're all selling something, right? Every human being on the planet is selling something. We're either selling ourselves to our next employer, we're selling ourselves to potential customers, we're selling ourselves to existing customers. We're all selling something. So people know that we're selling, but so I'll give you an example, right, Andrew? I'm obviously prospecting on LinkedIn at the same time as building my personal brand. So I'm putting out the content, connecting with people. I'm sharing value in the feed and I'm engaging with people. People know what I'm up to. They know what I'm trying to do. They know what I'm trying to achieve. It's not about having an agenda, because we've all got one. It's about how you approach your agenda. And if it comes from a point of adding value to people, and if it comes from a point of being as authentic as a human being can on social media, we'll have that conversation another time. I don't think people mind. I really don't think, but I think people would prefer generally people to add value into their world and try and be a great human being rather than be a robot sending sales pitches.
It's a good point. Look, people aren't, well, some people are naive, but most people know if you connect with them on LinkedIn, you're doing it for a reason. We all know it. We all know it, but it's all about the approach that gives you the time of day. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the opportunity to at least talk to them about what we sell. And at the moment, with cold calling, cold email, and normal pitching on LinkedIn, it's really low percent and really difficult to get right and really difficult to do. So all we're doing is strengthening our position to get that opportunity to talk to them and tell them more. They know it's coming, but if we respect them and treat them like a human and actually treat them like we actually have a solution for them, they're more likely to let us pitch it. And that's the simple answer. And we're not saying
Mm.
you're going to just hide yourself and hide in the shadows and no one will ever know that you're a salesperson, because they will. As soon as you go to connect, they'll see you're a salesperson. But if you treat them with respect and they can see there's some value behind your brand and value behind what you're trying to achieve, they'll give you the opportunity in the time of day to at least showcase your product, which is the hardest part at the moment, is getting the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. So look, guys, we're going to wrap up. Thank you for joining us on Halloween. We were going to be out at 7, but then we realized it was Halloween and everybody would be pretending they're not in. That's what most people do on Halloween. They basically turn all the lights off and pretend they are not in because they are flooded with children knocking on their doors. So we've done it early. If you're serious about building your personal brand and making money from it, drop us a line, or when we follow up to say, how did you find it? Did you get the replay? Reply back and say, I want to chat. And we'll help you build that personal brand and make money doing it. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time on Halloween. I'm actually gonna tonight. We moved house recently, so I'm in very charitable mood. So I've actually ordered sweets and everything, and I'm going to give them out to the children. Hopefully, they won't ask me what fancy dress outfit I'm wearing to give them the thing, and I tell them actually no, it's just me.
Yeah.
My own
Those of
lousy
you
joke.
taking your kids out, for those of you taking the kids out, hopefully it's not raining and you don't get, because I remember last year I got absolutely soaking taking my boys out. So fingers crossed that those of us that have to walk around the streets while our kids knock on doors. But anyway, to anyone who's tuning in
Cool.
later at Halloween time, thank you. And again, hi@maverick.io if you do want to email us, or Dean Seddon, Dave Faulkner on LinkedIn. Come and drop us a message, reach out to us. Also, click the link or reply to the follow-up message like Dean said. But look, at some point, we got to take it seriously and actually start to implement some of the things we learn from these events. And we're happy to walk you through some added focus on a call before you decide whether or not you should take some future steps at maybe implementing this full time. So look, take that action, and hopefully I'll hear from a few of you in my inbox, let alone on LinkedIn, just so I can help you further, and have a great night.
Yeah, build a personal brand and get it done. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another. I think we're doing an audio event next week, so we'll see you then.